Welcome to the first ever episode of the SuM Student Podcast. Get a look behind the scenes of the Sustainability Management Certificate. Today's episode is all about our impact project with OFFCUT St.Gallen, a creative reuse hub that fights waste with imagination and community power. We'll take you behind the scenes of our research, our interviews, our 3 strategies, and all the surprising things we learned along the way. My name is Vanessa, and I'm sitting here with Noah and Michelle, and we're all part of the first cohort of the Sustainability Management Certificate. Do you guys want to start with a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. My name is Michelle. I was responsible for market research and strategy and also education and culture.
Yeah, hi, my name is Noah. I was also responsible for market research, also strategy and just overall holistic support and looking for the cohesion of the project.
Nice. I also did market research and strategy, but focused in my interviews on innovation and social institutions. So maybe that you guys understand it better. First of all, let's have a look at what OFFCUT actually is. So OFFCUT Switzerland is a network of a total of 6 different material markets across Switzerland. And we in our project work together with OFFCUT St.Gallen specifically, and they promote circular economy by collecting materials from private individuals and companies, and they resell them in their material market. This allows something valuable to be created from what is sometimes considered waste, so the residual materials, but the materials also remain in circulation for longer, and it's an option for people, for example, with limited financial resources to buy good quality items for little money. And also some other options that you will get to know a little more about the further we go into our podcast. So, Michelle, do you remember what the main problem was that OFFCUT presented to us that we then tackled in our project?
Yeah, sure. It's still really present. The main problem was that they don't have enough financial resources. OFFCUT has very limited resources. Since their materials are so inexpensive, they do not charge a large profit margin on their items. As a result, they could focus more on other sources of income, such as workshops or other constant sources of income through a subscription solution or similar. The current model is therefore basically insufficient to make OFFCUT self-sufficient in the long term. So the question was, how might we design collaborations with companies that foster circular and sufficiency-oriented practices, creating value for both sides. So we wanted to design strategies and a strong network for OFFCUT to become an important local team player.
Perfect, thank you. And I mean, that's a pretty big question, right? So Noah, do you remember how we approached the whole thing to understand it better?
Well, yeah, let me think about it real quick. I think we first started to just try and put ourselves in OFFCUT's shoes. We also sought regular communication with our contact person in order to better understand the problem and their needs. At first, it was difficult to understand her wishes, as OFFCUT was not as tangible to us as it was for the people working there. But the longer we worked on the project and understood her motivation, the more we realized that OFFCUT was truly a labor of love. We also applied other methods too, like the ecosystem mapping and the materiality mapping that were greatly introduced to us by our great hosts, Rachel and also Justus. And yeah, we tried to just get a real good overall overview over the whole situation before we actually started to put some work in it, so we don't do work twice or do unnecessary work.
And I think a big part of it, right, was also conducting the interviews. How many did we have in total?
I think it was 12 and a phone call, which was kind of, it was an interview, but it wasn't really structured, but more or less just a quick exchange. But so yeah, 13 in total.
And when it comes to understanding the whole project, to understand OFFCUT, yeah, did you guys really think that we would end up kind of wiping the floor in their storage room?
Honestly, I think no one expected this one. But we thought we might be able to help out a lot in the shop and achieve a lot during our time working there, but we didn't expect this kind of work. Nevertheless, it became clear here too that OFFCUT involves so many different tasks, including cleaning the floor, tidying up materials, and advising customers as well.
But I also thought although it was unexpected, it was a really great experience. It was also, I would say, humbling in a way, because you first think, yeah, we're going to do something a bit more, let's say, glamorous, right? We're trying to help them, trying to improve their business model, but then you're there and you get handed a broom and you need to do real work, which is, I think, a great experience to also see this side from OFFCUT, which is the day-to-day business operations, which is the reality and which is also needed to be kept in mind during the whole process.
Yeah, sure. I think also it was important to see how OFFCUT works there and how they go to customers and how they advise them. That was really interesting.
Yeah, and getting your hands dirty instead of just sitting behind the laptop, right?
Yeah.
So now that we've got a little bit of an image of what we did before, let's get to the desk work that we did afterwards. So material input is all about how OFFCUT gets materials, but what were the biggest opportunities that we discovered there?
Well, to be honest, we were all extremely shocked at first when we learned that OFFCUT accepts all materials completely free of charge. Because of that, we thought that is about a subscription model, which is about long-lasting partnerships in different institutions and also organizations.
So what is that first strategy all about? Can you give me more details about it?
The strategy focused on a subscription model where OFFCUT builds long-term partnerships with schools, private individuals, companies and suppliers through a simple subscription model that stabilizes material flows and strengthens circular creativity. Through a subscription, donors gain easy, predictable ways to pass on surplus materials, receive clear guidance and engage in a system that reduces waste and creates direct value for the region. Subscriptions include scheduled drop-offs or pickups, transparency on what materials are accepted, and access to OFFCUT's digital resources. Revenue comes from an annual donor fee, recurring partnerships, and service-based add-ons.
Super interesting. But now looking at the interviews, was there something that surprised you guys the most about how companies think about donating their surplus?
A lot of the companies will just bring their leftover materials to waste facilities, and because of that, they will not remain in the loop, the materials. With this model, OFFCUT could leverage the recycling budgets of companies, keep materials in the loop for a bit longer, and therefore improve sustainability. However, we also talked with a major production company and realized that a lot of bigger companies already started efforts in their circular practices, which can rival OFFCUT's model. However, it is also good for the environment that this shift is starting to happen. However, our subscription model would also cover individuals, schools and institutions that have leftover materials, so we are not fully reliant on the companies to provide the materials to OFFCUT.
I remember, Michelle, you had an interesting interview with a museum. What did you learn there?
Well, it was crazy because they are going to renovate, I think it was next year or in 2027. But they also have many materials because it's the textile museum. And they could also donate to OFFCUT. So that's also where we saw a potential collaboration they could go for. Yeah, that's why. And they also had already a collaboration with the textile museum. It was just a small one, but they had a great experience with OFFCUT and they would like to redo it or do a further cooperation with them. So it was really positive, really interesting as well.
Do you remember was that collaboration they did, the installation they did at the main station at the
exactly
in St.Gallen? That was really nice. And I think it gave them a lot of visibility too. Yeah. So nice. I think now I understand the first strategy way better as well. But let's have a look at the second strategy, material output. Here we have the famous trash to cash model. What is that all about?
Basically, the trash to cash model is really simple, but it's really powerful too. It focuses on turning waste into valuable resources where companies and institutions can save money, time, and increase the quality of their offerings. This could be in the forms of creative kits, workshops or experiences. And it's really important that with each of the clients, OFFCUT focuses on communicating their impact, how they can make their life easier.
That's a really good point. I think I remember one of my interviews with a social institution, and there they also mentioned that the needs of their clients are changing, so they can't just buy products and materials 1 year in advance because the needs are always different. People with disabilities, sometimes they really want to work on a certain project, but then at some point they're interested in something else. So it's really about being client-focused, and they also said that it would be interesting to maybe just go and walk around OFFCUT, discover new materials, and kind of seeing what they put their hands on and what they want to work with. And I think that's exactly somewhere where we can leverage that trash to cash model as well. But I remember, Noah, you talked to an elderly home, right? Is there something that stuck with you there as well?
Well, I think overall the interviews, there was always a recurring theme that after we initially told the interviewees about the project, about OFFCUT, they were all really positive and they were all like, oh, that's such a great idea. We would definitely go and buy materials from them. But then also this was probably the most important point from the interview in the elderly home, is that most of these institutions and companies would use OFFCUT's services, but they don't have time to just go to OFFCUT and search for the materials. So they really need a system where they can know what OFFCUT has in stock, and so they can do their shopping at OFFCUT really time efficient, which was probably one of the most important points that we learned, and which is a huge potential for improvement on the side of OFFCUT.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it's really important that we can give them that knowledge now so they can adapt their model accordingly as well. Wow, so now we're already at our last strategy, the enabler strategy. So enablers are all about what OFFCUT needs to thrive: visibility, partnerships, community support. Can you tell me a bit more about that strategy?
Yeah, sure, I can take this question. So here it was all about a focused partner network. OFFCUT offers certain tiers of sponsoring with a comprehensive pitch deck that outlines their vision and value proposition and actively engages in networking efforts. Existing networks are leveraged and engaged with to also overcome time limitations of one-on-one communication efforts.
I remember with OFFCUT Bern, I did an interview with them, and it was really interesting to see the power of those networks, because in the end for them, they didn't really have to do a lot of like active reach out to gain new partnerships, etc. A lot of times they were already in the back of the heads of the people, or because of mouth to mouth, or them being active in certain networks or ecosystems, people already thought about them when they started a new project about circularity. So I think it's a really great point to use that and leverage that to, in the end, access a way broader audience than reaching out to companies one-on-one, as you said before. So that was it with our strategies, but let's talk about long-term impact. If you think about long-term impact, how does this contribute to changing mindsets in St. Gallen?
Well, I think the obvious point for long-term impact is the sustainability benefits that circularity has. But besides that, I also witnessed an interaction during our afternoon where we worked at the shop, where I really could see another kind of impact that OFFCUT generates. And this is the, let's say, the community impact. Because the people who came there did not only do some shopping, but they also were chatting to the employees of OFFCUT. They were exchanging ideas. They were telling them what they plan to do with the materials. And then the employees like Dennis and Rhea gave them inputs. Oh, you could do it like this or not like this. And I think this is something really important, especially in our now even a more and more digitalized world, that we still have those spaces where people can just come together, where they can exchange ideas, where they can have a chat. And I think this is a point where we also can have really much impact with OFFCUT, which sometimes gets a bit forgotten beneath the circularity thing.
And do you think that's something that, if following those strategies, that OFFCUT then can increase? Do you think that we can now reach a bigger audience after that?
Yeah, definitely, because we really also emphasize that OFFCUT needs to be integrated in the local networks here in St. Gallen, where we think they can have the biggest impact, where they, as I said, can exchange with other people on the topic, where they can exchange ideas, which, once again, as I already said, is something extremely important, I think.
I think for me too, like thinking about OFFCUT, how it works, etc., it's not just about changing mindsets, but also about changing all of the habits that we have in our daily life, like not throwing away everything, reusing things, trying to have more creative ways to use materials instead of buying them for one occasion and then throwing it away. But think about it. We just finished our final project, basically. What are your guys' key takeaways from the whole process?
I don't know, Michelle, do you want to start?
Yeah, I also have to think about this question. I mean, it was a long project, it was intense, it was great. I think we just learned so much from OFFCUT. It was so lovely people there that are working there, and they gave us so many things on the way. For example, as you said, the local community, they support each other. Also in the project, I think we all came really close. And it was a challenge from the beginning on, but I think we really did a great job, and we have good things and good strategies we can give them on their future way. And hopefully they can realize what we gave them in theory.
Yeah, I think for me as well, it was really interesting to interact with them to see how a sustainability project can actually look like in real life, but also understanding how the people in the ecosystem, so everybody that we interviewed and all the people that we encountered. Noah, you mentioned the customers at the store. It was so inspiring, and also to see, like, if you just ask questions, if you talk to people, what you can get out of it. I mean, a lot of them were so helpful in the interviews, even though if their company or institution couldn't help OFFCUT directly, they would provide us with contacts, new leads, etc. So just knowing that you shouldn't be scared to ask questions, that you should approach people, and by that you already gain a lot of knowledge. How about you, Noah?
Well, for me it's one word, it's organization. We are 5 people working on the project. We need to coordinate our meetings, we need to schedule meetings with our contact person at OFFCUT, we need to schedule interviews, and it can really quite fast grow over your head. So it's really important, especially for me, because I'm quite a disorganized person at times, to always keep in mind all these different dates, to organize, to also communicate, because it's a group project, so we need to communicate as a group. But I think we did a pretty good job in this regard, and it's definitely a takeaway that I will cherish for the future.
And maybe like the final words also, it's been 1.5 years too almost that we started the whole certificate program, but it was also nice to put our knowledge into reality, get our hands dirty, and then also kind of seeing how grateful and happy, for example, OFFCUT was at the end to see what we achieved, what we've been doing the past 12 weeks. And that gives a lot of, how would you say it? Like, it makes you feel good.
It feels
right?
fulfilling.
Yeah.
Especially after the presentation where Denise really seemed happy about the work we did, and she really said that she would like to implement some of those ideas we came up with. Yeah, it's a great feeling.
Well, we're already at the end of our podcast. Thank you all for joining us on this behind-the-scenes look of our OFFCUT Impact Project. This was episode 1 of the SuM Student Podcast. And if you want to see OFFCUT in action, you can visit their space in Lachen, St. Gallen, or in some of the other cities that it's available. And who knows, maybe your next creative project is already waiting in their store. Well, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.